So now we learned about the digitalization of machine parks, and we heard how connectivity can enable this with existing technologies, but also with new technologies. But for what we do all this? It needs to go somewhere. All the data which we are collecting then down there needs to go somewhere into the cloud. This is always a miracle what's going up there, but I'm pretty sure our next guest will bring some light into this and will give us some first insights about the Industrial Metaverse. So Max, stage is yours. Thank you very much. Looking forward to your insight. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, and also welcome from my side today here to be, and looking forward to give you some overview and some update about Microsoft perspective on the Industrial Metaverse and what kind of components we are actually delivering in order to make it real for our customers today. Yes, so my name is Max. I'm leading the technical organization for Microsoft in the field of IoT and OT across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And in the last years, we work closely together with our customers, partners, and startups to implement these IoT and OT use cases. Recently, we see a very interesting new opportunity and a new trend, which is called the Metaverse. And I would like to start with a short summary of the definition of the Metaverse, which is the blend of the physical and the virtual world to bring both components closely together in order to enable new possibilities to collaborate together. So this is definitely something which is very promising. And in my presentation today, I will give you an overview of the different components and some examples of what we are already doing with our customers today. Before we go into the details, I would like to start also with a definition, because they are different metaverse. So today we will focus on the Industrial Metaverse, also building on what already Matthias and Joachim already explained in their sessions today. For Microsoft, we would say that there are three different metaverse. So if we start on the left side, we have the business metaverse, where we have teams, obviously, where we have different avatars to collaborate. So this is the business metaverse, which we already see today in different areas in the office space, so in the white collar area. On the bottom right side, you can actually see already a picture of a game, right? So this consumer metaverse is also a significant part of the metaverse. And here we see that for especially gaming, but also different other applications, we see that virtual world and physical world are more and more overlapping. And obviously companies like Meta are also heavily investing in this area to really establish new digital environments where they can collaborate. And last but not least, the middle part, right? The Industrial Metaverse, where you can see also digital visualization of the shop floor, of the factories. So this is definitely the area where we are focusing on today, the Industrial Metaverse, to really see how we can make the factories smarter and how we can actually interconnect the value chain also across the different companies collaborating closely together. So this is definitely the scope of the presentation today. I would like to share a short video, what we have actually implemented with our partner Reply. And what you can see here in this video is actually a spot robot from Boston Dynamics patrolling in a process manufacturing company. And what you can see here in the video, it has actually a camera on top, 4K high resolution camera. And as you can see, it can actually already detect the different machines, the different components on this factory site, and do already a scoring locally on the edge to analyze the different behaviors to see if there are any problems with their facilities. And if it detects some anomalies, obviously it's creating a ticket, and then humans can actually go and inspect this. So this is a new possibility to really also bring robots and automation into the shop floors. We are having different scenarios inspecting bridges, where you have to inspect for different cracks in the bridges. So everything which goes in the way of inspection these are interesting new possibilities which are already existing today, where you bring together robotics, edge, AI, camera data, and then obviously also the intelligence in a hybrid solution together with the cloud backend. So this is just one of the examples which we have recently implemented, which is at the beginning of the Industrial Metaverse story. When we now look into what is our definition of the Metaverse, the Industrial Metaverse, and what is also behind, there's actually a link also to a very interesting keynote from the Build conference from Microsoft. And these are the different 7 layers of the Metaverse capabilities. If you look at the bottom right side, you have actually the factory, the shop floor, the real world, as we already heard, yeah, Schäffler, Harting, obviously, they are very much on this layer in the reality, connecting the different machines, looking into the right cable, the right infrastructure, which is the base for everything which comes afterwards, also on the edge, but also in the cloud. So obviously, you have this physical layer, which is the foundation of everything. However, then, if you want to enable the Metaverse capabilities, the connectivity and the synchronization piece is the first layer which we see as the foundation to really bridge the physical world and the digital world with the different cloud possibilities. On top, when you have the different data points connected from the sensors, from the machines to the cloud, you have the possibility to model the different environments, data contextualization to really understand the data, and then also link the data together. I think that's something which is quite essential. Also, the monitoring possibility to really then see, okay, what is happening in the shop floor, to give it a meaning based also on indoor locations. And then if you have done that, you can transfer the data, and then you can store the data, and you can track the past. So actually, in order to be able to look into the future regarding preventive and prescriptive maintenance, you need to obviously understand the history, and therefore it is key to store the data, to analyze the data, and then really to understand, okay, what caused failures in the past in order to see how you can then learn from it and take these insights in order to optimize for the future. So then we go into the layer predict, simulate, and even autonomous control, right? So if you really want to have the North Star of autonomous factory, which many of our customers have today, you need to be able to analyze the data on the fly with the real-time data, combined and blended with the historical data, with the learnings of the different procedures. And then you need to predict the different failure rates in order to see, okay, what is causing an issue in order to actually act before something breaks down. Therefore, obviously, simulation with high-performance computing is essential, and then a continuous feedback loop, digital feedback loop, how we call it. This is then really enabling to act before something breaks down. And the last layer, last but not least, is also quite essential, the interaction and collaboration layer, right? So data is good, you can store and analyze the data, but in the end, the data must be meaningful and it must support the humans, right, on the shop floor, but also in the control center. So this interaction possibility, as well as the integration into the business systems like CRM, ERP system, this is essential in this overall metaverse capability. So these 7 layers, we see traction, we see companies at different maturity stages in different industries, so this varies, but this is an overall journey where we see a lot of companies resonating with these capabilities and with the overall vision. If we now look into what Microsoft brings to the game, this is actually quite a holistic and complete portfolio which we have developed over the last year. So again, starting with the physical world, we have a full connectivity stack with Azure IoT, with the Azure IoT Hub, with IoT Edge, where you then can actually run the applications and the containers on the edge in a gateway or on a server in the factories, but also in the cloud. You have a secure bidirectional communication channel with device management, device provisioning. You have the Azure Digital Twins in order to have a digital replication of the physical world with asset tagging in order to also provide data contextualization. With Azure Maps, you can do the visualization, also location-based. Azure Synapse is one possibility to store the data. There are overall 7 different data storage possibilities, also obviously depending on the performance, on the cost, so different options which we are here providing. Then a very interesting layer where we see a lot of traction recently, which is around AI, but also Project Bonsai, which is a startup which we acquired a couple of years ago, which is offering reinforcement learning. And then everything also in OpenAI with ChatGPT. These are the analytics layer. Power Platform is really also a great opportunity with low-code, no-code to make it easy to create applications, also for people from the shop floor which are not UI, UX developers. And then last but not least, with Microsoft Mesh, with HoloLens, and then also the integration into CRM and ERP. These are the different components which are playing all together. And we have customers which are already leveraging 2 or 3 or 4 of these layers. We have a few which are leveraging all of these layers, but it's a journey. And I think it's important to understand step by step how can a customer benefit from the specific use cases and then leverage the technology stack which is underneath. Then I would like to share something which is also quite important, also in the discussion which we had yesterday over dinner, but what you also heard from Joachim and Matthias today. There are different worlds which are coming together in this case. So which is the OT world, the shop floor world with the sensors, the MES systems, with the infrastructure and the machines and cables and so on. And then obviously there is the cloud world, the IT world. And we are seeing that both worlds are actually coming more and more together in order to enable these new scenarios. Also what Matthias showed, right? We need a scalable and hybrid infrastructure in the cloud, also across multiple different clouds, as you can see here on the slide. And then obviously also on the different form factors on the edges. We call it tiny edge, edge and heavy edge. But our idea is to really have a one common infrastructure, Kubernetes based, where we then have the possibility to orchestrate and deploy the different applications, the different containers in the cloud, but also seemingly across the different kind of edges in order to make it easier also for developers to run different applications, Windows, Linux in one overall infrastructure to really enable also failover scenario and high availability from the software side, but also from the hardware side, where you can have local clusters where you can combine different edges, different hardware together. So this is something where you have the different planes, yeah, the data plane, the control and orchestration, and then also the management plane, where you have Azure Arc, which is a service which is already in place, very much used also for running different IT infrastructures, but we also see a huge opportunity in the understanding of the unified edge to bring the cloud and the OT world on the edge closely together. So this is definitely something which is a huge topic right now. Then something which we obviously also see is the overall shift towards the edge, right? Where you have the adoption curve here on the right side. You see obviously technologies like Windows IoT. We have already a huge amount of installed base where machine builders are using this technology for decades already. And then you see actually new areas like IoT, edge computing, which I just mentioned, where you can see, okay, we have early adopters leveraging it. And then if you move further to the left side regarding innovators, digital twin and then Metaverse and Industrial Metaverse, this is at the beginning of the adoption in the market, but it shows that there's a lot of demand for it and actually also a lot of need to bring the edge and the cloud side more closely together. So we see a lot of investments in this specific new area because there are significant also values why edge and cloud jointly together make sense, right? So regarding availability, regarding latency, you have 30 to 50 milliseconds around time to analyze the data and then actually also take actions with the robots, with the machines, with the different sensors, instead of having 1 or 2 seconds if you send the data to the cloud, analyze the data there, and then send it back to the different devices. So that is definitely something which is key. It obviously also works in an offline environment, so you don't need to have connectivity all the time. So you can actually also run the queries, run also even machine learning inferencing models completely on the edge in an offline scenario. And then obviously also topics like IP protection. If you don't want to have the data leaving your facilities, you can actually deploy it also locally. And then also the pure volume of the data, right? So you have more and more machines, more and more data points which are being connected. And sometimes it is not necessary to send all of the data all the time to the cloud, but you can actually do a first inferencing, first analytics locally. And only if you see anomalies, you can send these high resolution data to the cloud in order to train the algorithms and then deploy it back to the different devices. So there is a huge evolution of this market, and obviously it also needs to be profitable from a monetization perspective. So this is definitely something which we see, and then there's also more and more a marketplace and full environment being established with our own service which we are offering, but we also have a marketplace which is open for our partners and for our customers. We see also a lot of startups in this area evolving, and then also the European Cloud Data Act, which also assumes that in the next 2 to 3 years there will be a significant shift of analyzing and processing the data locally on the different edges, and then also to ensure that this data can be used also across the value chain. So these are definitely a lot of the drivers why we see that edge is definitely going to be there for the future and even going to get more important. So in the last 7, 8 years since we are running the IoT and OT business in Europe, we have seen a lot of different projects, and we have seen a lot of different pilots and MVPs, so pretty much hundreds or even thousands of these ones. However, we also have to say not all of these projects were successfully implemented. So therefore, I think it's also important to understand, okay, how can we really provide value out of these digitalization and IoT projects? And so therefore, a holistic approach is essential. We have spoken now about the technology. We have spoken a little bit about the business cases and what you can do with the data. But there's also one third ingredient, which is also critical for the success of these projects, which is the change management, the mindset, and then also the people, the humans, which also need to be in the center of this overall transition. So you need to give them time, you need to train them, and you really also need to enable an environment where different teams, which never worked together in the past, they are now starting to collaborate. And so it is important to understand that all of these 3 categories needs to be implemented together in order to really drive productive, large-scale implementations of these kind of digital projects. So what do we see currently in the market, and what are the customers actually doing in the field of industrial metaverse? And something which we actually call digital feedback loop, right? So you have the data in the center here of this visualization, and we see 4 key categories of use case clusters. So if we start at the top left side, where we have the customers, especially in industries and business models where it's B2B2C. So for example, Fissmann or Stihl, which are producing their chainsaws or their heating systems, selling it to their dealers, and they install it or they sell it to the end customers. Here, it is important to really leverage the data from the device to understand how the customers, the consumers, how they are really using these products in order to understand, okay, what are the patterns, how can you do cross and upselling? And also for the dealers, it is a huge opportunity to become a closer strategic partner for their end customers if they actually can inform their customers about optimization patterns in the different devices. So this is a huge opportunity, not only to be informed if you're a machine builder or a chainsaw builder, if there are problems with your products or components, but to really understand the patterns of the usage. So this is a huge opportunity, what we currently see, also to then leverage these new established channels to your end customers for cross and upselling. The second area I would like to touch is employees, right? Here, this is really about services. We see more and more of our customers, machine builders, but across multiple different other industries as well, which are not just producing a piece of metal, a kind of machine or device anymore, but they are really giving guarantees and providing digital services around their products. And so therefore, it is important to become from a reactive mode into a proactive mode to take the humans on this journey. So that means you know already in advance before a component in a machine and a device will have a problem, will have an issue in the future, and you can actually then get your service divisions skilled, trained, prepared to bring the right spare parts with the right skills, and they're already knowing what to do if they arrive at the machine, or for example, coffee machines, right? So this is a use case which we have implemented within Microsoft ourselves, where we operate multiple coffee machines, and in the past, there was an issue, an error, and then the coffee machine wasn't working until someone comes, looks at the coffee machines, figures out what is the issue, and then starts to repair it. So now this goes in a very much more proactive direction. If we look into the bottom area, the products, so we have customers like elevator manufacturers, or forklift manufacturers, which are not selling a device or a product or an elevator anymore, but they are really changing their business models, also equipment as a service, where they are charging only when their machines and their solutions are being really being used. So this is definitely something where you really have to understand the full value chain of your products and then really be there to expand the responsibility, but then obviously also share the risk and also take more ownership in this area. So this is something where we see a lot of demand and also a lot of new testing, figuring out what is working. How can you really then use a HoloLens in order to give advice when something breaks down, to get the experts in order to fix the elevator very, very fast. So a lot of interesting new possibilities. And last but not least, the top right side here, around the operations, especially in Germany or in the Europe area, we have a lot of factories. We have a lot of very highly skilled companies in manufacturing, but also in the automotive industry. And there are a few very interesting areas also which we see here. One is obviously getting transparency across the value chain to drive sustainability, to drive efficiency, do more with less. But then obviously topics, what Matthias also explained earlier, OEE optimization, these are interesting new areas on the shop floor in the space of industrial IoT, always in a hybrid architecture, edge and cloud, where we see a lot of interesting use cases to get transparency across the value chain, and then also see companies starting to collaborate, machine builders with the car manufacturers to share the data, to analyze the data, and then really feed the data into the digital factory models of the different OEMs. I would like to share also some external perspectives. So this is IDC. This is a study where it really looks into the future. Where are we currently? And what are the big mega trends which you can see in the future? This slide is rather packed, but I would like to highlight a few which are actually key also on this industrial metaverse journey. So if you look into last year, obviously the supply chain challenges which we faced all over the world, there was a high prioritization to drive more visibility and automation of the different supply chain. Now this year, we see also a significant trend regarding data management, data contextualization, to understand the data and to understand that the KSB pump at Bayer or at BASF, even if it's exactly the same pump, the SAP systems, it is very different tech, and it's very hard to leverage the data across the different companies, and that's definitely something where we are working closely on the data standardization across the different customers in the similar industries. Then obviously in the future, also 2025, there seems to be a huge push around AI and the automation, right? So there's actually something which we see that AI can be trained in the cloud, but it can also be really deployed on the edge to do quality inspection with a camera in the factories. And we really see that also with robotics, we already have companies, official references with BMW, for example, and Wandelbot, where they're doing end-of-line AI-driven inspection with inferencing on the different edge on a robot in order to support the humans, that you don't have to have two humans, but a human and a robot. This collaboration that seems to really pick up significantly more in the future. For 2026, it says actually the OT-IT conversions, what I highlighted earlier, that there are actually significant investments and initiatives in the specific areas. We really hope that this perhaps can also be pulled a little bit forward and not wait until 2026. But this is definitely something where we see a lot of the different trends of OT and IT coming more and more together, as we highlighted earlier. So a lot of different opportunities ahead of us, and hopefully we will be really able to drive productive implementations of the different industrial metaverse scenarios. Coming to the end of the presentation, I would also discuss a little bit what Microsoft can support in this area, because obviously we are having the cloud infrastructure with the different technologies and the different services, which actually I showed earlier, which we are providing in the different data centers around the globe. But we have very specific opportunities and offerings also in Germany, in Europe, but also around the world in the different regions. If I start at the top, we are really having technical experts which are shaping together with our customers and the partners the right architecture. So you can imagine it would be a Lego box, and you can really stitch together the different building blocks based on your individual requirements. And we can also include, obviously, your existing IT, so you don't have to start from scratch, but we can really shape the right brownfield as well as greenfield architecture for your specific use case and requirements. The second area, hands-on hackathons and workshops. So we can really show you how to spin up the different Azure services, how you can configure that. We can actually also connect a SBS or a gateway jointly together, and then really drive knowledge transfer. So I think that's something which is key. You are always the expert in your specific domain, in your specific industry, and Microsoft is a vertical provider of the technologies in order which can be customized in the specific context. We have a strong partner ecosystem where we can also do some co-fundings and really support our customers by sponsoring and bringing in the right partners to drive a productive implementation. The business case, so as I pointed out earlier, we have seen a lot of different customers starting with IoT and OT initiatives. We have seen many pilots and MVPs, but how do you really earn long-time money with these digitalization initiatives? Internally or externally, both is possible, but you need to find someone who is really seeing significant value in the data so that it can be monetized. So that's definitely something which is very critical to start at the beginning, to really understand and think about how can you make a profitable digital business with the different data points from IoT and OT. We have the Microsoft AI and IoT Lab in Munich for EMEA, but we also have a center in China for Asia and one in Redmond for the US regions. Here we have data scientists and architects, IoT experts, which are working in sprints for weeks together with our customers and partners in order to drive acceleration of the different projects and to shorten the time to implementation. And last but not least, PR and marketing cooperation. So HMI is already around the corner, where we are really planning joint go-to-market strategies with our customers. Because obviously if our customers are successful in landing and scaling their solution with Azure, which is consumption-based, we are not selling any licenses anymore, but really we are in the same boat to try to make our customers to partners and really make them as fast as possible successful in order to generate joint new revenue streams. With that, actually, coming to the end of my presentation, I would like to thank you for your time and your attention. And with that, I'm handing it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Max. No, everybody is laughing backstage, and I do that. you can hear that. Thank you very much. I think much more to tell. Thank you for joining. And contact Max. He will be available for sure also to answer some more detailed questions.